question for you. How is sex presented when you were growing up, especially if you grew up in church, and how do you wish it had been presented? Somebody asked me this question and I was like, we have to talk about this. Welcome back to another episode of Life Advice You Don't Hear in Church. My name's Tiffany Dawn and I am so excited about this topic. So for me, when I was growing up, sex was talked about in more of a general way. I never even knew what sex was until my first boyfriend. Literally, age 17, my boyfriend explains to me what sex is and I was like, gross. So I never knew. I remember being afraid if a guy hugged me that I was gonna get pregnant and all sorts of like crazy stuff that I thought because I didn't hear it anywhere. I was homeschooled, didn't hear it in school, didn't hear it in church. I had no idea what sex was. But I was taught that it was wrong. It was something you shouldn't do, and that any sort of contact with the opposite sex was purpling. You had to watch out for that. If you guys hear crazy amounts of noise upstairs, my husband is playing with the girls and they are having a great time. And I started to feel a lot of shame around relationships and physical interactions because I felt like it was all bad. I didn't know what was good, what was normal, what was bad, what was healthy, and what wasn't. I had no idea. It was all just blurred together. Because of that, anytime there was even normal sexual desire, it felt bad. Anytime I was in a relationship, it felt wrong. I would have guilt all the time, even for a first kiss or him putting his arm around me and my body feeling excited. I would feel guilt, like I'm sinning. Something is wrong. It was all cloaked in shame. So I want to talk today about how would I love to see this addressed in churches. We spend a lot of time talking about how harmful purity culture was, but maybe it would be more helpful to talk about what we could do differently that might be healthier. A little bit of background to just set the scene for where I'm coming from with this. With my girls, I have 3 goals for them as they grow up, and all the parenting decisions we make, we try to make them fit into these goals we have for our girls. When I talk about how I would love to see sex presented in churches, I'm coming at it from those 3 things too. The first goal is confidence. You are loved who you are. You don't have to do anything for anybody else in order to receive love. And so when you're making decisions about sex, it's from a place of confidence instead of insecurity. The second goal is kindness, that when you make these decisions about sex, you're making them out of respect and love for other people and their boundaries and their consciences. You're not just thinking about yourself, but you're thinking about the other person too. And thirdly, critical thinking, that you could think through different perspectives on this topic and not feel threatened by them, not just following blindly. Somebody says this is the right thing to do, just doing it. Instead, really thinking for yourself, digging into it, studying it, talking with people you trust, and deciding, what do I believe on this? Not on a whim, not lightly, but really considering it for yourself and figuring out where you stand on this topic. So those are 3 goals I have for my daughters in all of life, but also for this conversation in church. I would love to see it approached from a place of confidence, kindness, and critical thinking. And so there's 3 steps that I think could be really helpful to get there. The first step is approaching it in smaller settings with people who know you. I think that whole group approach of everyone sits down, you're like, don't have sex, blanket approach, I don't think that's helpful. In fact, I think it can do more harm than good. We don't know where people are coming from, who's been molested, who's questioning their sexual identity and orientation. Sex is a vulnerable topic, especially when it's with teens and young adults. This is a vulnerable thing, and you don't know how what you're saying is affecting different people in different ways, which is why it's so important to know the person you're having the conversation with. Maybe this is just one-on-one person and a mentor. Doesn't even have to be a mentor from the youth group. Maybe this is a small group, like 3 friends sit down and talk with a mentor about this, but knowing each other and having that relationship and that small group setting, I think would be so helpful in keeping this a healthy conversation instead of a harmful one. Step number 2 is looking at the why. This is the critical thinking piece here. Looking at why you would even want to wait until marriage, why we would say to even consider this. The first half of the why is the biblical why. You want to look at, what does the Bible actually say about this? I grew up reading the Bible and going to church, and I had no idea why people said you had to wait until sex for marriage. For the longest time, I was like, I know people say this, but like, where is this in my Bible? In fact, in the Song of Solomon, it looks like they might not even be waiting till marriage. Like, I don't know the whole culture at the time, but what's going on here? I had all these questions. Finally, someone explained to me, anytime the Bible talks about sexual immorality, that's sex outside of marriage. And I was like, okay, I don't see that clearly explained in scripture, but I'll go with it. Like, let's go from that perspective. But I wish it had really been explained. Here's why we believe this, and here are other perspectives on the topic. Kind of introducing a range of here's what different people who are trying to follow God and honor Him and honor the Bible, here's what different people believe on this. Here's why some people believe it's okay to have sex in a committed relationship before marriage. Here's why they believe that. Here's why some people believe sex is meant to be saved for marriage. And here's why some people get into varying degrees of boundaries. Some people save their first kiss until their wedding day. Some people make out before their wedding day. Here's where some of those reasons come from biblically. Now, I know this could take some research and some time to figure it out and pull it off and explain some of those biblical reasons, but I think it's so helpful and healthy to have that. So it's not one person saying, here's what you believe, we're not really going to explain it to you very well, but here it is. And instead saying, here's where you can come from on this, and think about it, and don't choose lightly. Talk with people you trust, explore this, and don't be threatened by other perspectives. Let's all talk about this here together, right? So sharing those different perspectives. And if you're looking for a resource for explaining the why behind abstinence biblically, Matthew Vines of the Reformation Project has a brand new course all about this, linked into the description below, and that can be a great resource for you. The second half of the why is non-religious reasons to save sex until marriage. Reasons you might want to wait, whether or not you think it's the way to honor God biblically. There are a lot of these. I know for me personally, I'm so glad I waited, because with my personal past and insecurities and personality, if I had had sex before getting married, it would have been a performance. The first times I was having sex would have all about been performing, being good enough for this person to stay with me, for them to like me, for them to be interested. I would not have been present in the moment I would have been performing. Instead, I got married. I'm with James in this safe relationship, which marriage does not guarantee a safe relationship, but thankfully ours was a safe relationship. He was already committed to spending his life with me, so I could simply be present and experience it for what it was. And that made for a much healthier perspective on sex from the beginning. That laid the foundation for a healthier perspective. So if you're looking for some more whys, why wait until marriage, whether or not you believe this is a way to honor God? Emily Wilson has a great video with a whole bunch of non-religious reasons to wait. It's linked in the description below. Step 3, I would love to hear different people share their stories and journeys. I just want this more holistic view of sex in all different parts of our lives. Our sexuality doesn't start when we get married, right? We are sexual beings. So what does that look like in singleness, in dating, and engagement, and marriage? And I'd love to hear people talk about this from like just a holistic perspective. I know one of the things that many people, myself included to some extent, took away from purity culture was, if I do it all right and I go by the book and I don't have sex till marriage, then God is going to bless me and my marriage and my sex life. And marriage is still marriage. Sex is still sex. They both take work and practice to get good at it. And they're both a journey, an adventure you go on together and experience together. So I'd love to have some healthier expectations, not like sex is this mysterious thing that nobody talks about, it's gonna be amazing, or sex is this mysterious thing covered in shame, it's probably not gonna like it. I don't want those things. I want this like real life exposure in a sense. So having different people come up, people who are single, people who are dating, people who are married, people who are divorced, people who are widowed, whatever it may be, just have some different people share about how sex has impacted their lives, in what ways it's been positive, in what ways it's been negative, what things they've learned, what they wish they did, what they're glad they did, just to share their experience and give more of that big picture view. And really taking the focus, zooming out from just don't have intercourse to suddenly like, what does this look like holistically for my life? To have a healthy perspective on sex, to be a healthy person, including sexually, what does that mean? And the single perspective is so key here too, because we have these sexual desires and it's easy to think they're all wrong instead of realizing they're normal. This is part of how we were made biologically by God. I remember with my first boyfriend, he put his arm around me. I felt so turned on and I felt so guilty for days, just repenting and repenting for my body doing what it was made to do. And we need to like normalize some of this stuff and say like, this isn't wrong. These desires are not wrong. And here's some different ways you can approach this in your singleness. I want people walking out without shame, without guilt, instead just saying, I have confidence, I have kindness, I have critical thinking. This is a journey. So I want to hear from you guys in the comments. What do you think about this? What would be helpful for this conversation? Love you guys, and I'll see you next week. Bye.